Let me welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, at our international expert seminar on the Visegrad perspective for 10 years in the EU. Before we start, let me thank our partners who had supported this seminar. It's Heinrich Böll Stiftung Prague and representation of the European Commission in Slovakia. Let me welcome our today's guests. Ms. Maria Majkowska, Research Fellow of the European Program at the Institute of Public Affairs Poland, Vladimír Bartovič, Director of Europeum Institute for European Policy, Czech Republic, and Grigory Mesežníkov, President of the Institute for Public Affairs, Slovakia. And also I would like to excuse Mr. Sabados, who unfortunately is sick, so he could not attend today's seminar, but he has sent also interesting presentation. It's over there, you can have it, it's in English, it will be published in Slovak at Euractiv website. Euractiv is the media partner of the event, as well as the presentations or short introductions of all other guests. So I think this was for the beginning. We have an interesting topic. Maybe you are being a little bored in this year about all these seminars and conferences about 10 years in the EU and what did EU bring to us and what we have brought to the EU. I'm really sure that you have also attended some events that were discussing the Visegrad perspective or the perspective of Visegrad countries in the EU, but still I think we have very interesting guests, and let's take it as a forum for open discussion which could also bring some kind of impetus for further discussion on what do we want to achieve in the EU as individual countries, but also as a Visegrad group. So before we start, I would like to give floor to Mr. Dušan Chrenek, head of the representation of the European Commission in Slovakia, who will open the forum, and then we'll proceed with individual presentations. Mr. Chrenek.
Thanks. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure for me to welcome you at our European Information Center on behalf of the representation of the European Commission on today's International Expert Seminar, 10 Years in the EU, Visegrad Perspective and Beyond. I think that this seminar takes place in a right time. We have the new European Parliament already in place and working. Last Saturday, the new European Commission started working. And on 1st December, the new President of the European Council, Mr. Tusk, will start also in his position. Furthermore, we have serious problems in the EU. Lack of economic growth, extremely high unemployment. The EU is also challenged by developments in Ukraine and facing alienation of people from the European project. There are also visible differences among V4 countries regarding European policies. So I think this is really a good time to take a view how V4 countries have benefited from the EU accession, how they could contribute to the European Union policies, and also how can they cooperate better. All V4 countries benefited from accession to the EU. EU membership increased their weight on the international scene, increased their attractiveness, gave them more freedom, and also helped them to increase economic growth and living standards. Nevertheless, there are substantial differences among them. Some have benefited more than others. In case of Slovakia, I think that Slovakia can be really considered as a success story. Today, Slovakia is in the core of European integration. It's a part of Schengen zone and also a member of Eurozone. Regarding Slovakia, I would like to point three diverse periods really different periods. Firstly, I think that maybe for Slovakia the most important period was even before accession. Power of attraction of the EU helped Slovakia to overcome internal political problems and to accelerate necessary reforms. Before accession, Slovakia quickly adopted political, economic, and administrative reforms to be ready for EU membership and to enter to the EU at the same time like other Visegrad Group countries. After accession, still in first 5 years, Slovakia was flying on positive wave. It had high economic growth, unemployment was decreasing, living standards were increasing, and also in that time, Slovakia became a full part of the Schengen zone, and in 2009 also adopted euro. Unfortunately, last 5 years brought a different picture. Economic and financial crisis had a serious impact on Slovakia. There was lower economic growth, higher unemployment, and also the Slovaks were not happy with the need for solidarity with richer countries which had substantial financial problems. All these events together, they brought discontent with the EU to Slovakia. Still, the Slovaks have more positive attitude towards the EU than EU average. Nevertheless, it is substantially lower than it was before the crisis. So we cannot really speak about the so-called Slovak paradox, that we have high support to the EU, but low participation in the European elections. Unfortunately, the low participation is evident, it's the lowest in the EU, but also the support to the EU is decreasing, and therefore there is a need to act. Some people are frustrated also because in their mind the EU failed to fulfill their expectations. But many times these expectations are unrealistic. They expect from the EU solutions in areas where the powers of the EU are minimal, like judicial system, a level of salaries and pensions, healthcare, or social security. For me, there is one crucial challenge, probably common to all V4 countries, that is how people perceive and how they relate to the EU. The EU seems to be more popular outside its borders than within the EU. I would point out that there are some serious gaps in the EU. In the EU, there is a governance gap. Since member states, they cannot deliver what citizens need, while the EU institutions still lack part of the commitment to do so. There is also a legitimacy gap because citizens perceive that decisions are taken at a level too distant from them. And there is also an expectations gap because people expect more than the political system can deliver. Furthermore, there is a lack of ownership in European politics. When democratic decision makers refuse to acknowledge, defend, and endorse their common decisions, European legitimacy will always suffer. I think there is now a time for a political and societal debate on how to solve existing problems and how to make EU working better for its citizens. But without responsible behavior of all actors, EU institutions, national leaders, national administrations, but also civil society, we cannot make it efficiently. Therefore, I'm looking forward to our debate today and discussing V4 perspectives, but perspective in general, how to increase power and attractiveness of the EU. I wish you a successful and inspiring event. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hrenek. So now the time comes for our discussion, which will be started by some introductory remarks by our panelists. Just reacting to what Mr. Hrenek said, new head of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, said that this is the last commission which could hope to regain the people's trust in the integration project. And if that's so, that's a serious challenge now. And obviously, member states are important actors. To do something with the trust of the European citizens in the integration project. So now the question is, what are the main interests? What are the main issues that the Visegrad countries want to solve on the European level, individually, but also collectively? So I suppose we could start by introductory remarks first from Ms. Maria Majkowska, Research Fellow of the European Programme at the Institute of Public Affairs Poland. In her short presentation, which was already published at the Euractiv, she decided to stress common positions and political projects that the Visegrad countries had on the EU level. At the same time, when we talk about Visegrad, we always take Poland as something, as a kind of a different animal. A big country, member of the Big Six, country with a very specific positions towards the Eastern Europe, country which is somehow part of the Central European region, but at the same time part of the Northern European region. So maybe Ms. Majkowska could try to help us to navigate in this complicated mixture of identities that Poland has and identify which one of them or what is the importance of the Central European Visegrad identity of Poland.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be here to be able to speak about Polish perspective on the past 10 years in the EU, but also looking ahead into the future. And yes, indeed, the relevant question nowadays is how to increase the attractiveness of the EU. So what I would like to focus on in my presentation is, first of all, a little bit of the past, what we have done so far, but also looking at the future. So maybe I will begin by daring to say that actually since 2004, I believe that we have actually walked a long way, all the Visegrad countries. Well, 10 years back, we were simply the countries, the new EU member states, expected to adopt the common acquis communautaire, so all the legal system of the EU. And although each of the countries probably had already back then certain priorities it wanted to pursue, it was still, I would argue, more of a time of policy taking rather than policy setting. Well, time has changed. 10 years have passed, and actually the position of each of the Visegrad countries in the EU has strengthened, I would dare to say. We are now, the V4 brand is now a recognizable brand. And thanks to actually us acting together, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia and Czech Republic, the voice of the V4 countries is well heard in the EU. Although it's still a big challenge to remain in the forefront of the policy making in the EU, I would say that thanks to us acting together, our perspective is becoming more and more visible and more and more often accounted for. So I would like to actually focus on the priorities that we, Poland, have pursued so far, but also the priorities that we have pursued together with our Visegrad countries, partners. What went right and what could have gone better? Actually, I decided to focus on three aspects. On the aspect related to the economic and monetary union, the single market, and the EU external relations. Well, as far as the economic and the monetary union is concerned, I would say that here the two main priorities that we have identified in Poland were, first of all, fighting the so-called multi-speed Europe, and second of all, of course, Euro accession, Euro adoption. As for the multi-speed Europe, well, I would say that European Union has for years now been accelerating towards what can be defined as this multi-speed Europe, which on one hand is a good concept because it allows those countries that are ready at a given moment in time to integrate faster and deeper. But on the other hand, there is a threat related to that concept, namely that of countries, member states of first category, the so-called core of the EU, and those second category members. What are the initiatives within this very concept? I would say that the euro itself is, to a certain extent, this kind of concept that divides the member states, not questioning its legitimacy, but I would say so. Secondly, numerous mechanisms that have been proposed following the crisis, such as the signing of the European Fiscal Compact, or the recent activities related to the creation of the banking union. And here I would say the single supervisory mechanism, which was initially, in the initial proposal of the European Commission, closed for the non-Euro member states. So what can be the reaction towards that? Well, Poland, together with other non-EU, non-Euro member states, has tried to fight this tendency to divide the European Union into this multi-speed system by securing the openness of the new procedures. In the process of negotiations, notably the negotiations on the banking union recently, the system was opened to the non-Euro member states, and the so-called mechanisms of close cooperation was enabled to the countries that are not in the Euro area. At the same time, I would like to stress out that the fact that Poland does support the strength of the EMU and the need for the reform. The need for the reform, which is manifested by the actually stronger integration. But at the same time, we do believe that there is a need for openness of those mechanisms. Coming back to the second point in terms of priorities pursued within the economic and monetary union, I would say that, of course, one of the priorities is undoubtedly the need for joining the Eurozone. As we all know, what needs to be done in order to join the Euro club is, first of all, fulfilling the formal criteria, the Maastricht criteria, which is not the case for Poland yet. We still have the excessive deficit procedure going on. But more importantly, well, I would dare to say more importantly, there is a strong need for profound structural reforms. Why is that so? In order not to repeat the scenarios of countries such as Portugal, for example, which actually, because of low level of intellectual competitiveness of the country, I would say suffered from joining the Eurozone. That is why we should make sure, Poland, before joining the Eurozone, we should make sure that the level of competitiveness is high enough. And one of the indicators of the competitiveness of the country is for sure the level of the standing in the innovative ranking. Currently, Poland doesn't rank that high. According to the Innovation Union scoreboard of 2014, it's only on the 25th out of the 25th position out of 28 countries, with Slovakia being the 21st, Hungary 20th, and Czech Republic 16th. So there is still a lot to be done in this respect. Of course, on top of that, in order to join the Eurozone, there is a need for support from the side of the citizens. And here as well, there is a little bit of a problem on that side, since only 29% of Poles actually support joining the Eurozone at the moment. There is a need for debate, and there is a strong need for debate, a serious debate on the side of the politicians, public administration, and experts. And that's what I would call for at the moment. There is a strong need for that in Poland. Apart from the economic and monetary union priorities, what we have been focusing on in the past 10 years were again were as well the priorities within a single market area. And here again I would point out to two things which were important for Poland, but I would say for all of the Visegrad countries. Namely, first of all, securing unrestrained access to the single market for all EU member states. And secondly, ensuring something what's at the moment so crucial, namely the EU-level natural gas supply policy. Starting with securing the unrestrained access to the single market. Well, on one side we can say there are four liberties, four freedoms guaranteed by the, enshrined in the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, enshrined in the secondary law. But we all know that the freedom of services is not, has not been completed. And here are some statistics. Well, the cross-border market for services has practically been non-existent, as according to the Internal Market Scoreboard of 2009, while services accounted for 70% of the EU GDP, their share in the intra-EU trade was only 5% of the GDP in 2007. Why is that so? Exactly because of the fact that there were lots of national barriers, and they need to be taken down. Hence, there was a strong involvement on Polish side, on the side of Polish government, in the negotiations on the Services Directive of 2004, which unfortunately has been watered down by the so-called old EU member states on the basis of social dumping allegations. I would say, well, that's why this Services Directive was not implemented in the original form. But I would say that what we have succeeded in doing, and here actually we were acting jointly with the Visegrad countries, was taking part in the discussion on the directive concerning the posted workers, that is those workers that are employed in one EU member state but sent on their employer, by their employer on a temporary basis to carry out their work in another member state. This was the case in 2012, that was on the agenda of the Commission. And Poland actually opposed the idea of of introducing some kind of changes in this directive, which would lead to posting workers being more and more difficult. Thanks to our common work together, we have actually maintained the status quo. And I would say that that's one of the successes of Poland, but also of other Visegrad countries in trying to ensure that there is this free flow of services in Europe. And as far as the EU level natural gas supply policy is concerned, well, here I would say that Poland has been quite active on the international scene. As for years, the ministers of foreign affairs of Poland have been voicing the need to build the common EU market. And actually, we have done a lot in order to try and fight for the diversification of supplies, both in terms of what we provide, but also in terms of where from we provide the energy. Hence our strong support for shale gas exploration, and here works on that. And also the famous proposal for the creation of the EU Energy Union, which will probably be pursued during this new commission. And finally, on my last remark regards the field of the EU external relations. Here, first of all, I would identify again two main principles here, two main priorities. One of those was, of course, related to our eastern neighbors and our drive towards drawing attention to the Eastern European countries. And secondly, on a broader scale, actually promotion of democracy on a broader scale. So first of all, as far as the Eastern countries are concerned, one of the postulates from the very beginning of Poland was that of offering Eastern neighbors, Ukraine in particular, the EU membership perspective supported by short and medium-term goals, such as the possibility of introduction of visa-free regime or tightening the relations with the EU countries. In order to succeed in this priority, we needed, of course, to secure a strong alliance, hence our partnership with Sweden in the proposal of the establishment of the Eastern Partnership. As far as the promotion of the democracy on a larger scale is concerned, I would say that here our main achievement was that of the establishment of the European Endowment for Democracy, which is a new independent grant-giving institution, which is functioning already and gives provides support to activists and leaders from Georgia, Lebanon, Morocco, Syria, Ukraine. Well, that's as far as Polish perspective is concerned. So, to finish with some remarks on our common stand, our common perspective, I would say that all that wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for actually acting together. As far as the EMU is concerned, Economic and Monetary Union, if it wasn't for the Visegrad countries acting together, the idea of introducing the close cooperation mechanism in the banking union wouldn't have been possible. When it comes to the liberalization of services, again, here we have acted together and worked together on the Posted Workers Directive. Finally, I would say that, well, although the Eastern Partnership idea was Polish and Swedish joint initiative, I believe that it would have been much harder to implement that at that time if it wasn't for the fact that the EU Commissioner for Enlargement was of Czech origin, and actually the initiative was launched in Prague. Well, what are the lessons to be learned from all that? I believe that one main conclusion that I can make is that of the need for securing coalitions and working together and speaking in one voice. As I have said at the beginning, the V4 brand is a strong one. It's already recognizable, but we may not always succeed, just as it was, for example, with this services directive. Still, there are higher chances of succeeding on the EU level if acting together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for focusing on three very important issues. One, the governance of the Eurozone. Second, the common market, which is the basis of the European integration. And last but not least, on the Eastern Partnership issue, which is a very hot topic now. I'm sure there will be much to discuss during the when we open the discussion. Now I would like to give floor to Mr. Vladimir Bartovic, Director of Europeum, who will be talking a bit more about the Czech perspective on the EU integration. We know very well that sometimes the relations between Czech Republic and European Union were not, so to say, rosy, and you have mentioned it in your introductory presentation published on Euractiv. Sometimes Czech Republic was trying to be more British than British, but the policies are changing now, positions are changing, maybe you could elaborate more on what might be the future and what role Visegrad could play there. Rado.
Thank you, Rado, for introduction. Yes, my presentation will focus a bit more on the Czech experience in the EU of the 10 years of its membership. I will try to answer also the question, what did the EU bring to Czech Republic and other way around. It's also the motto, main motto of my institute, European Visions for Czech and Czech Visions for Europe. So it corresponds with this. And at the end of my presentation, I will try to continue where Maria ended, and also to comment on the current perspectives of the Visegrad cooperation. As Radomir said, the Czech Republic is, or has been until recently, perceived in the European Union as a state with rather not very positive, even negative attitudes towards the European integration, which was confirmed not only by the behavior of political elites, but also by the opinion of majority population. But this was not always the time. Czech Republic, Czech citizens, very similarly like Slovaks, Hungarians, Poles, for them the European integration from the very beginning of democratic changes meant the return to Europe, and it was also one of the main slogans of the Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia. So the EU membership for these countries, and in Czech Republic this resonates especially very strongly, was a very natural process that just didn't create something new, but returned the Czech Republic to the place where it always belonged. Unlike the other countries of the region, in case of Czech Republic, the transition process with all of its ups and downs still went quite smoothly. Not only the transition process, but also the accession process to the European Union. We all know very well how Slovakia suffered at the very beginning of the integration processes. In case of Czech Republic, this experience is missing. While during the accession process, there was a nationwide consensus on the issue of the necessity of integration to the transatlantic process and European integration processes. The consensus was built upon the goal, but not upon the concrete individual conditions of the accession process. I think, or I know it, only one relevant political party 10 years ago was reluctant to give support for the EU membership of the country, still not saying no to the membership, and it was the Communist Party. But already during the accession process of the country, we can see the start of what we call now the Czech Euroscepticism, although at that time it was called Manifesto of Czech Eurorealism, written by several politicians, mainly from Civic Democratic Party, ODS. The membership period of the Czech Republic and membership experience we can divide very clearly into two periods. Both of them, they are 5 years long. It's 2004, 2009, and 2009, 2014. First 5 years of the membership can be characterized by quite impressive economic growth. It was 4.1% annual GDP growth in first 5 years of the Czech membership in the EU, decreasing unemployment. The unemployment reached 5% rate, growing investments. It was also a time when the Czech Republic became a member of the Schengen zone, and the other countries were continuously lifting barriers, for example, on freedom of labor. But from the strategic point of view, it was a time of preparation of the EU presidency, the EU Council presidency, in the Council of the EU presidency in the Czech Republic. Also, this time can be characterized as the time of learning how the decision making in the EU is done. For example, the Czech Republic tried to be very active in the foreign policy of the European Union towards Cuba, but due to the fact that just didn't know the procedures, the Czech diplomats didn't know the procedures, they lost a huge battle in the EU when a common position on Cuba was adopted, but never did the same mistake again. It was also a time when the EU was very popular in the Czech Republic. During the presidency, in February 2009, 69% of Czechs in opinion poll conducted by agency STEM said that the membership of the Czech Republic in the EU is very beneficial, 69%. Also, absolute majority of population was in favor of introduction of the euro as a currency in case of the Czech Republic. And now, no, or not now, but 5 years ago, the crisis came. And since that, the Czech Republic was not able to recover from the fall in 2009. Unlike Slovakia, which was able to recover very quickly, and now the level of GDP per capita in Slovakia is higher than in 2008, the last pre-crisis year. In the Czech Republic, still after 5 years, in 2013, the Czech Republic is still below the level of 2008. So the Czech Republic was not able to recover so quickly, although maybe the consequences of the crisis were not so profound in the Czech Republic if we are talking, for example, of the unemployment rate. It didn't increase such a lot like in Slovakia, or the social consequences were not so dramatic. But still, economic crisis, together with another factors, has very strong influence on especially the opinion of people, which became very negative. In April 2012, the number of people who considered the membership in the EU as a positive signal for the Czech Republic or a positive thing for the Czech Republic, was almost equal to the number of inhabitants which were thinking opposing. So there was just 1% of difference between those who assessed the EU membership positively and those who negatively. What is even more important, if we are talking about the position of the Czech Republic in the European Union, the Czech Republic became got this very negative label of being a troublemaker inside the European Union. Of course, it started with the fact that the Czech Republic almost blocked the ratification of the Lisbon Treaty. President Klaus signed it only after very hard pressure of being the last one in the EU, and also after blackmailing the other European state and trying to get an exception from the treaty. The government, under his strong pressure, very weak government, refused to join the Europlus Pact and refused to sign the fiscal compact, which didn't put the Czech Republic in the position of other Visegrad countries, or I mean Poland and Hungary, but it put the Czech Republic in the same place like Great Britain. And here it was funny remark that the Czech Republic was more British than Britain itself. That was the truth. There was some kind of irrational feeling in the Czech Republic that among the politicians from Civic Democratic Party especially, that the UK is the closest ally of the Czech Republic. But then I went to the statistics of the Council of the European Union, and out of the 27 in that time member states of the European Union, the Czech Republic has most distant voting from the UK at the end. So UK and the Czech Republic has completely opposite interests if we are talking about the voting in the Council. Of course, we can argue that only 10% of issues are being voted in the Council of the EU, but still. Now, if we are talking, I mentioned it already, but there is a very interesting number. In 2004, the Czech Republic entered to the European Union with the level of GDP per capita of 78% of the EU average. And in 2013, after 10 years of membership, it was only 80. So the Czech Republic was able to converge during the 10 years of the EU membership only by this 2% from 78 to 80. In case of Slovakia, or Poland and even Hungary, there is a huge difference. I think in case of Slovakia, it's something like 54 or 56, and now it's 76, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so it's 20%. In case of Czech Republic, only to 2%. So economically, we cannot say that the Czech Republic would be a winner of the European integration process. What is good that unlike in Slovakia, in the introduction made by the director, was said that the support for the EU is decreasing in Slovakia. So finally, in the Czech Republic, the newest numbers now confirm that the support for the EU is increasing. It's quite easy because to increase from the very bottom is not so difficult. The reason is also the new government. I was able to read the draft version of the new EU strategy of the government, which is to be adopted in upcoming weeks, and it's so different than the last one. One of the first three sentences of the strategy when I read it, I almost fainted. It was, "The Czech Republic naturally belongs to the core of Europe." This sentence is in the draft strategy. I hope it will remain there. But after 5 years of living in the country where the EU was almost a swear word, this is a dramatic and sharp change in the Czech attitudes. Okay, now I don't have too much time, so I have to skip some of my points. I will not continue now with the Czech experience. I will try to focus on the Visegrad cooperation, because this is the topic of the panel, and maybe just some points, some thoughts. I can agree more or less with the points which Maria raised when she was talking about the common interest of the Visegrad 4 countries, maybe with some differences from the Czech perspective. But first, some general comment on the Visegrad cooperation. Visegrad cooperation is usually in the capitals of V4s criticized a lot, that it's not reaching or it's not able to use all the fruits which the tree offers. But on the other hand, when I'm talking to diplomats in Brussels or politicians in Brussels, the image is absolutely different. They are even scared from the Visegrad cooperation. I remember when it was 2010 or 10, when during the Slovak presidency in the Visegrad, the prime ministers of the Visegrad countries started to meet in ahead of each European Council meeting. Germans were freaking out completely. They were and the French prime minister as well, because they knew that the power of Visegrad countries it's quite strong when they have one voice. The problem is, of course, that naturally many times they just do not have the same interest. When I was talking to Slovak diplomats in Brussels, in the permanent representation in Brussels, how do they cooperate with the Visegrad colleagues? They told me, look, of course, they are now our natural allies, but on the other hand, more than 50% of our agenda of the Slovak representation is completely different than the others' agenda. Because for us now, the primary goal, what is taking the most of our energy is the Eurozone. It's the Eurozone, and here, okay, what we can do for our colleagues in other countries of the Visegrad, we can pass them information, but that's it. We have other things to do. And that's the reality. So Slovakia is, thanks to the membership in the Eurozone, a bit away from the mainstream in the Visegrad cooperation. That doesn't mean that the sectoral cooperation doesn't work well, especially the interest in energy cooperation are very similar. Now with the commissioner, commission vice president from Slovakia responsible for energy union, I expect that this will be the area where the Visegrad countries can cooperate more intensively. On the other hand, Eastern Partnership and democracy promotion. This is probably the areas where I do not agree with Maria that this would be the areas where in upcoming future the countries could have, or they could have common interest, but I am not sure if they realize they have it, because look, Eastern Partnership, the absolute difference in positions of the Visegrad countries towards Russia and towards what's happening in Ukraine. Hungary, I'm very sorry we do not have a speaker from Hungary here, because it would be very interesting to hear from him. But it's behaving almost like an agent of Russia inside the EU. I will not comment Slovakia. It's not necessary. Everybody knows. And I can comment Zeman. Have you heard what he said 2 days ago?
Yes.
About
Pussy riots.
Yeah, about Pussy riots, and I was thinking that.
I can comment if you have.
Yeah, please. Please, Grisha, comment on this, because it reminds me basically living in Slovakia in 1997, 1996, and 1998. And democracy promotion, you mentioned democracy promotion. Come on, how can Hungary promote democracy now in the world? It's just impossible. We need to promote democracy in Hungary. Now I will be very politically incorrect, but I think, and given the experience of Slovakia, that the other Visegrad countries should do the same like they've done together with partners from the European Union and the United States in mid-90s in Slovakia. So support for civil society in Hungary in order to dismantle this autocracy regime which is there. I'm sorry for being so open, but I am Hungarian and I have compassion for what's happening there. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Vlado, and it's good that we have already started discussion. I'm sure this topic will be discussed a lot here. And it's good that you have mentioned the democracy promotion, because Mr. Messerschnikow has mentioned the importance of the EU as an anchor of democratization process in the Central European countries, in Slovakia, but also other countries. I mean, in his comment published at Euractiv. Given the rise of right extremism, and Hungary is not the only country where it's happening, in this case maybe Czech Republic is, I mean the situation in Czech Republic is comparatively best at the moment. Given the rise of the right extremism and populism, we could hardly say that the strive for the democracy or democratization is over in Central Europe. So that's why it would be interesting to see what the EU integration could do with that, or whether the integration itself will be changed by this process. We have also heard that Slovakia is now in a very different situation compared to other European countries, I mean other Visegrad countries, because we are members of the Eurozone. So we can tell to our Czech friends what does it mean to be at the very core of the integration process. Or put it in other words, what does it mean to be more German than Germans? Anyways, I would like to give floor to Mr. Messerschnikow. I think at the beginning he will only present his views, and then we'll go to the book at the end. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for introduction. I would like to thank organizers of this event, Europolicy, Euractiv, Heinrich Böll Stiftung, and representation of European Commission for inviting me to share some observations about EU agenda at the 10th anniversary of our membership, common membership in European Union. So let me start my short introductory contribution by saying this, that really it was never better than now. It's a good thing. It was never better, it was never more stable development in the region of Central Europe. Never the nations and countries of this region lived in so, in quotation mark, comfortable social conditions with quite functional and more or less prosperous economy with the security guarantees. We are inside. So because we are inside, we are in European Union, our life is more predictable, more secure, and still even mentioning the problems, and Mr. Hrenek mentioned some of them. Some of them are related to European Union, to internal challenges, some are not. The consequences of economic crisis, financial crisis, it's a more complex issue. We cannot connect, let's say, the problematic impacts of this crisis into our economy or economies of other countries directly with the membership in the European Union. But the fact is that never in the history of this part of Europe, the life of millions of people was so predictable, stable. We live in freedom, in democratic society, and we can decide about our own destinies. Saying this, of course, I don't want to say that we do not have any problems. The Slovakia case is quite good example how country, how people can change the situation even in the problematic circumstances. Slovakia was only one country in which the so-called integration conditionality was employed in two basic ways, two basic modes. In negative modes, when Slovakia didn't fulfill criteria for membership in EU, and we were de facto rejected. In 1997, Slovakia wasn't even included in the group of associated members who started negotiations, but then because of our problems, internal problems, we de facto were disqualified in this process. And then after the change of the situation in 1998, Slovakia employed the second mode of European integration conditionality, the positive mode, in which European Union de facto encouraged us in our reform process, and Slovakia somehow miraculously transformed itself from the outsider in this process into the Central European reform tiger. So today, of course, and speaking especially in the Visegrad context, Slovakia is the most integrated part of the former socialist, in quotation mark, bloc in the European Union. We are members, we are full-fledged members of European Union. We are in Eurozone and we are in Schengen zone. So only Slovenia, I think, and Estonia can be compared with us in this. So of course it's Latvia is also, yeah, sorry. So we are in much better situation today, and of course it's a consequence of our internal reforms and EU integration. And we know that not only in Slovakia, but in other countries also, it was the two sides of the same coin. So we implemented the reform process and integration, our participation and integration encouraged us in the reforms. And Visegrad 4, of course, played a tremendous role in renewal of our integration chances. After the mentioned change in 1998, Visegrad partners, Hungary, Czech Republic, and Poland supported Slovakia in its movement after we started the removal of our backwardness. Existence of V4 as a group, I think that V4 as a regional format which has its practical dimensions for the situation, consequences for the situation in Central Europe. The sense of this regional grouping is really the common positions in crucial issues of either regional development or in European Union itself. The fact that we succeeded to enter Eurozone sooner than our neighbors, I think that it's understandable. It shouldn't disqualify and shouldn't diminish our cooperation, and especially in the context of the challenges which we are now facing with. If several years ago, speaking about challenges, we considered mostly, predominantly internal challenges, some institutional development into European Union, all these problems which Mr. Hrenek mentioned in his contribution today. I think that the importance of externalities is much higher, and Vlado spoke about, I would say, uncommon voice of V4 countries in eastward direction. Unfortunately, it's true, but I don't think that the situation is absolutely replaceable. I don't want now really, it was a joke that I promised to comment Mr. Zeman's remark about development in Russia, but we see some kind of symptom which of course I evaluate rather a negative way. We are enjoying our membership in the European Union, and somehow for some politicians I think it's typical that they forgot how our Western partners supported us when we tried to be members of the club. And today I think that we have an informal obligation to support those nations and countries which are trying to be the same integration grouping as we. Of course, not all of these countries are equally prepared for being members of European Union, but we shouldn't reject them. We should rather encourage them. And in the context of what is now happening in the eastern part of Ukraine, I think the task is absolutely crucial for us. Even I think that today we are celebrating the whole year. We are celebrating 10 years of our membership in the European Union, and there are of course indicators, positive indicators of our membership, quantity indicators, but also quality indicators. But we shouldn't forget that the completion of the most successful integration project in Europe would be if the Europe will be whole and free. I don't want to touch now the issue of Great Britain. I hope that Great Britain will survive as a member of European Union, and I can predict that now the whole Union and particular national governments will invest a lot of energy in this issue. But what about Western Balkan? What about Ukraine? I just returned a few days ago from Ukraine. We know that just in this year in which we are celebrating 10th anniversary of our membership, Ukrainians and European Union succeeded to sign, to conclude, and Ukrainian Parliament already ratified association agreement. It's an event of tremendous importance for Ukraine, and I think that European Union as such and Visegrad countries, which are much closer to Ukraine, and our own future will depend whether Ukraine will be the unified, democratic, independent state, which is orienting to the same values and to the same structures, integration projects as we are orienting our members, or it will be just the arena for some external players, in this particular case, of course, very well-known actor, Russia, which is trying to somehow disconnect Ukraine from its partnership with the European Union and with our countries. I think that, unfortunately, V4 countries are, or some leaders in V4 countries are underestimating the importance of this issue. We are trying to, we are more thinking about the reducing of our benefits from, let's say in this particular case, trade with Russia, but we are somehow, we do not see the broader perspective for the case. Again, back to Slovakia, this double employed EU conditionality mode in 90s, and today, after 10 years of membership in the European Union, we can speak about the concrete material benefits, but unfortunately, the public debate about our membership, and especially debate about future of European Union, somehow indicates that we are more focused on, I would say, hard factors, but not soft factors. Olga Jarfashova, who is author of the numerous studies about voting behavior in Slovakia, is frequently speaking that we are witnessing the Slovak paradox. We have really one of the most Euro-optimistic publics in the European Union, or maybe the most Euro-optimistic, and if we are, if we see to the data from Eurobarometer polls, the level of trust to European institutions is really very high, even more than 80% in some institutions or some common policies. At the same time, we see that voter turnout in elections is the lowest in Slovakia. I think that the most responsibility, the biggest responsibility lays on our political class. How the public debate in Slovakia is going on about European agenda. Just look to the main slogans of political parties running for European Parliament elections. They are trying to defend our interest in the European Union. You know, it looks like we have the most serious, I don't want to say enemy, but the most serious actor who is endangering our interest is the European Union, which is nonsense, And the role of our representatives in the European Parliament, by the way, is not to defend our national interests, but to represent some values, some political programs, some strategies according to the party line. So it means that if political parties are sending these false signals to the voters, how can we expect that the voters can understand that their personal participation in elections is important? The second quite problematic trend which I would like to mention is how Slovak politicians is handling the benefits from being member of European Union in Slovakia. They are speaking only about spending the Euro funds. Our Prime Minister Fico, who is, according to himself, committed European, when he's speaking about European Union, frankly speaking, maybe it's my fault, but I didn't hear any references to the values, to the so-called softer or the quality parameters. He's speaking about some sums, about some funds. It's very important. Of course, we know that everyday life is dependent many times on the implementation of infrastructural projects, about some projects in agriculture. It's absolutely understandable. But when we decided to, and when Slovak citizens supported the strategic decision to be member of European Union, people were thinking about really values. At that time, in 1998, the most efficient slogan for mobilizations of citizens was back to Europe, so to be in the same position as our neighbors, Czech Republic, Hungary, and Poland, but not, some formulas about spending of Euro funds. Today, citizens, of course, enjoy very much all these factors, but if we want to have really committed citizens who understand the reality of European Union, I think that politicians should change maybe their treatment of the whole issue. And if I have now opportunity, it's my, I would say, double satisfaction from the participation in this event that today, in cooperation with Honorable Stiftung, we succeeded to release the book, which is a collection of essays of 18 Czech and Slovak authors, sociologists, political scientists, journalists, civic activists, other experts, which are evaluating the impact of 10 years development of our two countries, Czech Republic and Slovakia, in European Union. It's my pleasure to introduce some authors who contributed to this book. They are in this room. It's Juraj Alner, Pavel Demeš, and Olga Ďarfašová, and special introduction is Zora Butorova, who really done excellent job editing this book. This book will be available in the Institute for Public Affairs, and if some others would like to just maybe speak a few words how they work on this book in the debate, I would like to encourage them to do this. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mesežníkov. With this, we have closed the introductory remarks, and I'm open the floor for discussion. I think there are a couple of issues have been mentioned in those remarks that could be developed a bit more. I'm sure that the panelists would hate me because I was passing them the small sheets of paper saying that they have to cut short, but many things that they have said could be developed more in discussion. So the floor is open for your questions. And before you start, I will use my position as a moderator and pose the first question. I will not ask about the Eurozone, which would be an obvious issue because we have talked about it a lot. I will not ask about the democratization process and the role of the EU or the role of Visegrad in the democratization process. I would rather ask about the third issue, which was quite discussed here and especially by Mr. Messerschnikow, and it's Eastern Partnership. When the Eastern Partnership policy was formed with great influence of Poland and supported by other countries, it was based on an implicit promise of the future membership for the countries on the eastern but also southeastern border. Now we see that there is a de facto moratorium on the enlargement. It's a spoken moratorium for next 5 years, but I think this policy or this reluctance to enlarge the EU will hold a bit longer than the 5 years of the first Juncker Commission. So my question is there a time to somehow redefine the Eastern Partnership policy? Is there a time to try to find a new basis for cooperation with the countries on the eastern border, or should the Visegrad countries press for a future possibility of the enlargement of the EU towards the east? And if so, does the EU need any changes in terms of its institutions, structures, or governance processes to be able to accommodate such a diverse and large countries, in case of Ukraine, that would become future members? So I would propose to start, as we have started discussion, so with Ms. Majkowska.
Thank you very much for this question. And actually, I was preparing to make a small remark concerning that very thing, coming back to what Vlado has said. Because I hope I was not misunderstood. The last thing I wanted to do was actually praising the questionable approach of Mr. Orban. Well, quite the contrary. Only last week in Warsaw did we have a similar event, conference that was attended by the experts from the Visegrad countries, including Hungary. And we were actually, what we were doing was actually questioning, and mainly the Hungarian expert, whether what's happening right now in Hungary is already the drive towards the authoritarian regime. So, well, I was, yeah, exactly, I wanted to be very much far from that. But what I meant to say was basically stressing the priorities that we identified, back then supported by other Visegrad countries. I would say that in Poland there is a determination to pursue this priority. We are not responsible for what's happening in other V4 countries, so, well, the larger the alliance is, the better, but we cannot change the current state of political affairs, for example, in Hungary at the moment. As far as the project itself is concerned, coming back to your question, I believe that there needs to two things need to be done. First of all, as far as the alliance itself is concerned, whoever we have on the board, that's great. Poland is for sure determined to pursue it. As far as the countries to which the project is directed at, we all know that the project is questionable at the moment, given the situation in Ukraine. We know it's not functioning that well in countries such as Belarus, which has opted to participate in the Eurasian Union. Armenia has chosen the same way. I would say, and that's what I can hear in lots of debates on that topic, is maybe focusing on what's functioning well, namely countries that have made a lot of effort, such as Moldova and Georgia. And here, coming to the question on what can be done, given that the enlargement perspective has been postponed. Well, let's focus on what we can do at the moment, such as the introduction of the free visa-free regime with Moldova. Let's focus on measures like that in order to send a message to the citizens of those countries that exactly it's worthwhile trying to adopt the legal standards of the EU.
Thank you, Rado. it's nothing more or less to add to what Maria said. I absolutely agree with her. At the end, I refrain from calling the Eastern Partnership now of being a dead policy or a complete failure. I don't think so, because nobody, maybe somebody, yes, but not too many people expected what could happen in Ukraine 2 weeks before it happened. There is one positive factor on what happened in Ukraine, at least that some of the member states of the European Union, some of them, finally got the image what is really happening in the eastern neighborhood of the European Union, and where Russia can even go, how far it can go in its geopolitical place and struggles it is doing. For me, basic problem of the Eastern Partnership from the very beginning was very low support for the policy among the member states of the European Union. Rado, you said that there was an implicit promise of the EU membership, but it was from our perspective. We evaluated Eastern Partnership policy as implicit promise of the EU membership. But ask politicians or experts in France, and they will tell you opposite, complete opposite. No, of course, that was a policy which was given to those countries instead the membership perspective. Now is that, in my opinion, now what we have to do with the policy is to perceive the policy as basic guidelines, guiding principles for our relations with the countries in Eastern neighborhood, as some kind of offer, yeah. But the only one option how we can proceed, and here I agree completely with Maria, is based on individual approach towards the countries which are most promising, which are fulfilling the individual criteria. So the implementation of the principle more for more. It would be naive now to promise Ukraine that yes, you are right, in 6-7 years you can become member state. No, we cannot do them this, because we wouldn't stick to this promise anyway. We know it all very well, that there is no chance that Ukraine would become member of the European Union in the next 10 years. But we can still offer more and more if, for example, Ukraine or Moldova delivers more and more. We need to show them the support because they, to a large extent, they are not the politicians, but the citizens in these countries, they gave up from part of their well-being or easier life, or they gave up the easier way, yes, and opted for maybe more difficult way. So we just have to also stick to our promises. We mustn't make new promises which we know we will not deliver anyway. So this is, in my opinion, the only one way. I don't think we can now do a big revision of the Eastern Partnership policies. We are trying to do that with every Eastern Partnership summit, but the policy as such, with the basic principles in the policy, I can assess it positively.
Well, let's remind the situation in which at the beginning of 90s, after the collapse of communism, Central European countries started to knock in the doors of European Union louder and louder. Yeah? So the European Union had to handle with this issue, and the European Union elaborated the special mechanism of enlargement. So what is the difference in the situation that time and now? Imagine that 75% of the votes in the last Ukrainian elections now, last week, went to pro-European parties. So I can predict that in the foreseeable future, this knocking to the European Union doors will be louder and louder from Ukraine, even in a situation in which Ukrainian state is endangered. So it's just an additional factor for them to be closer to European Union. Of course, we are realistic. We know that now Ukraine is not prepared for this, but the movement is very important. As Eduard Bernstein spoke in 19th century, that movement is more important than the goal. I don't think, but that goal is also important, but movement is important now. We have to elaborate maybe the modified mechanism of the EU conditionality toward the more successful countries of Eastern Partnership. I agree. Of course, we have to be more focused on the countries which are really, which want to be members of European Union, which want to be closer to European Union. I think that Armenia is lost and Belarus, unless the dictatorial regime exists there, I think even cannot be qualified as, I don't know, as a partner of European Union. But speaking about Moldova, speaking about Georgia, speaking about Ukraine. In Ukraine, this development will be much faster now in this agenda than before. So I think that it's unavoidable to handle with Ukraine, to define the conditionality, to elaborate the mechanism, and for us, it's in our interest of V4 countries, but also the whole Europe. Europe should be more patient and should understand that it's really strategic issue. It's not just some formula about economic benefits. Who will use what economic factors, what will be the proportion in economic cooperation and all this stuff. But it's really strategic decision, and it can improve our even security guarantees if we will have Ukraine as a stable state. And by the way, the closer position of Ukraine to EU, and I have to say to NATO, the less, the less provocation from the Russian side will be on the table, because it will discourage Russia from being too aggressive to the partner of European Union. And any events which are now happening in European Union, Russia is considering during these optics, whether EU or United States or NATO will react substantially to, let's say, these quasi-elections in a separatist area or not. So we are helping to Ukraine and we are helping to ourselves.
I think that at the end, Ukraine will do something which, for example, Bosnia or Kosovo would never dare to do. Yeah, I think Ukraine at the end will, just in order to push the EU, will apply for the membership. And at least what it can do, yeah, it will push the European Union to answer the question whether even possibly, yeah, there is this category of potential candidate, whether Ukraine at least could be potential candidate for the EU membership. And here, I think the answer, if positive, this can help Ukraine to keep up the motivation of its own citizens. Because, as Grigory said, the most important now with Ukraine is to not to lose the support of Ukrainian citizens for the orientation of Ukraine.
I would mostly agree with that Eastern Partnership is not dead, and there is a need to continue, because it's also a credibility of the EU is in stake. So we have to continue with the support, and actually the EU is doing that. Also in case of Ukraine, some countries reluctantly, but they support common solutions. And definitely this is an issue for many years, that the EU cannot leave Ukraine on its own, and it needs to support them really for a long period. Regarding membership, there was no promise to give countries of Eastern Partnership possibility like to have an accession process, because there is no consensus inside in the EU. Of course, some countries, they understand it that the Ukraine would benefit from that perspective, but in this situation, I think it's impossible really to give them this promise, and definitely the whole process is going to be extremely long. Regarding, because still there are many issues internally in the EU, and also accession process of Western Balkan countries is not finished. So to take on further commitment, strong commitment, I think it's quite difficult in this situation. What the EU needs to do now really to solve mainly internal problems, not to forget external, but really to concentrate on internal issues, because there is a danger that the situation is quite problematic. And regarding Western Balkan countries, I think there is no pause. There is still the process continues, but also it's realistic to say that we will not have accession in 5 years, because also countries, they need time to fulfill conditions. And for example, negotiations with Croatia took 6 years. So to maybe at the end in 2020, we will have results of negotiations with Montenegro or with Serbia, and if there is a solution to name problem, advance negotiations with Macedonia, but definitely no accession until 2020. But I think that the process will advance significantly.
I would like to add just one sentence. Nobody in Ukraine expects that the European Union will offer membership now. I think expert community, journalists and active people, I mean, better educated people understand that it's not the issue of this day. But it's very important what signal will be sent to Ukrainians. Whether European Union accounts with the theoretical opportunity that Ukraine will be part of the family or not. I think it's the time when the signal should be sent. And then the process will start. And the conditionality will change the situation on the ground. We know how it worked in Slovakia. We completed our negotiation, de facto negotiation process during 3 years. 3 years. So if Ukrainians will be successful during 10 years, it will be still okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, there is a point of consolation for those countries which are not supporting the further enlargement. We can see now that the integration process could be a very long one, and there are so many waiting rooms where you can get stuck that actually having made a promise for something in the future is not a guarantee. Anyways, if there are no questions at the moment, I would like to. Please. Okay, so I think we can take a round of questions. It's easier, and then the speakers could answer any of them or all of them.
Thank you very much. I think that this was a very nice défilé of analysts who mapped Visegrad attitudes towards contemporary issues confronting European Union, and also, Dusan, I think that your intro comments about feelings within Europe and some mega trends were very useful to frame the debate. I have following 2 questions. First, I think that in your presentations very often I was feeling more wishes than hard reality. And let me challenge you what I mean. If you say that Eastern Partnership is testing our credibility, that we need to keep it because of this and because of that, I agree with that, but this is wish. But if we look at reality where we are today, there is one factor which we need to calculate in if we want to be serious, and the factor is called Russia and Eurasian Union as an alternative integration project. Russia is using, besides soft power, where European Union is quite good at, also hard power, where we are rather lost. And the question here is, if Russia is contradicting Eastern Partnership or countries which we designed or labeled as Eastern Partnership, unless we calculate some new developments, including hard power, I think that these will continue, that we wish that this would be project and we need to give little help here and little bit there. And basically we will operate on premise doing something is better than doing nothing. How do you see that European Union is developing in now and in future relations with Russia and Eurasian Union? This is going to test not only Eastern Partnership, but is going to test also European Union as such. Looking at Visegrad 4 after this Russia hit, I think that we are seeing how vulnerable we are, how our leaders are vulnerable, what kind of signals, how splitting lines within countries and among Visegrad 4 it's taking place. And I think that this we need to take into consideration if we want to see unity of European Union and unity of Visegrad 4. So Russia is testing not only whether Ukraine will become or not become, but Russia is testing European project as such. And last, so if you could comment on this, and secondly, what should we do as EU, both political leaders, analysts like yourself, in order to bring in European Union citizens closer? Dusan, I'm taking your point, legitimacy gap. Citizens do not feel that our leaders are really leading. How European leaders were elected this year is bringing worrisome signals. How European Parliament is composed is bringing some worrying signals. What are we doing actually to empower citizens in belief in project called European Union? Vladimir Putin has 85% support. What Juncker is going to do at least to have half of that support, what kind of strategy, what Mogherini is going to do to be trusted as Lavrov is, and so on. So I think that we need to put more serious things in this rather chilly weather what we are now confronted with. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting, very challenging. I have maybe easier question than Paolo raised. And I was wondering that Maria did not mention that the name of the next European president is Donald Tusk. And I see it as strengthening the role of Poland as a regional power. And what do you think about the cohesion of V4 in this respect? So I think that it was clear even from the presentation that Poland is much more not policy taking but policy setting than the other three Visegrad members. And how do you see it for the future? Wouldn't it be 1+3 Visegrad? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Someone said that Poland is a strange animal in the panel. I think that we can add some other strange animals in the V4, like Slovakia, Czech Republic, and Hungary, and they all together create another strange animal, which is called V4. And I think that, yes, exactly. But anyway, you can like even strange animals, I would say, but you have to have realistic expectations from them. They can even move bad moves, I would say, in a wrong direction, but still you can like them. I think that we have to realize once and again that the V4 has never been a united bloc of countries that would always speak in one voice. You have to have realistic expectations, and I think that all the panelists underline that fact, but it's necessary, I think, to underline it again and again. Regarding the situation in eastern Ukraine and Crimea, I think that you can hardly criticize the V4 actually verbal statements on the situation there. The only, I would say, a critical comment from my side would be that the first statement came quite late. It was already after the Maidan, marches and so on and so on. But still, on the V4 level, you can hardly find any critical point, I would say. The problem is with the individual position of individual V4 countries. But even here, if you take into consideration that Finland, actually, Finnish position regarding the sanctions was very much divergent from the positions of other Nordic countries. No one has been speaking about expelling Poland from the Nordic cooperation, or even pointing on Poland as a country that would not show solidarity with the others. This means, from my point of view, that we can just take into consideration that we can have different positions on a number of issues. And I would underline Maria's statement in this, that yes, we have to look for as many issues as possible in which we can create coalition, but this is not enough. From my point of view, taking into consideration the changes in the voting rules in the Council, we will need more partners for any single issue to build coalition with. So my question would be, where to find those partners? Of course, the natural candidates are the newcomers to the EU, so to say Romania, Bulgaria, other Baltic countries, and so on and so on. But in the old EU, where can we find partners, or most reliable partners in most issues? Thank you.
Thank you. So before I give floor to panelists, you have evaluation formulas on table. Please, if you would fill them for Heinrich Böll Stiftung, and then also there is a participant list at the door. At the end, those that haven't signed it, please sign it when you will be leaving the event. So now I propose we could start in a reverse order. So starting with Mr. Messerschmidt, if it's okay.
Well, all questions which Paolo put us, I would join these questions, putting them to decision makers, of course, because all these questions are for politicians. I have, some answers to these questions. What to do toward Russia? I think that still, on the political level, we are in a new situation. But unfortunately, we underestimated the probability of such development when we had the first bells, in Georgia, for example. So it means at that time, Russia showed, the borders, how far it could go. I think it was a test which, from our side, from European Union side, wasn't very successful, because after 2-3 months of the open aggression and de facto annexation, de jure not, but de facto annexation of Georgian territory, European Union just decided to continue business as usual. So it was, of course, signal for Russia, and I completely agree with you that President Putin's strategic goal is disunite European Union. It's absolutely clear how he is formulating his policies when he is speaking about Europe, he is speaking about national states. It's clear, what are the preferences of current Russian administration in keeping contacts with some politicians and some political forces in Europe and European Union. I think that otherwise, European Union is involved or was involved during the last 6 months in this issue in very intensive way. I think the frequency of summits, consultations, negotiations, meetings of prominent supreme European leaders or leaders of European institutions was incomparable with the previous year. So it means that it's a higher understanding of importance of this issue. But how to react, I think that civil society should somehow stress, the expert community should stress, and European Union and European countries should wait, what is more important, either some economic benefits or strategic perspectives of relation with our eastern neighbors and relations with Russia. And very shortly, to your second question, also a very good question, very difficult to find the solution, but I think that if European politicians will not employ domestic national political topics in European agenda, especially before EU elections, maybe the situation will be better from this point of view. How to close citizens, how to make citizens closer to European Union. Because we are, simply speaking, we are overburdened by the domestic agenda in our national political life, national elections, but our politicians are feeding us by domestic political topics before European elections. It's not a good solution.
Paul, you succeeded to pose again the most difficult questions, as always. I can tell you what would I do, yes, but it's absolutely irrelevant because I am not a decision maker and my... Yeah, okay. I would do the same like Reagan, you know. I would just refuse the Russian gas. Just take it. We would survive without it. You know, I am so shocked when I listen to the Minister of Agriculture in the Czech Republic, how he is absolutely, you know, I don't know, shocked and nervous that the sanctions from Russia could harm the Czech economy by 300 or 400 million Czech crowns. You know, it's like, you know, in my pocket, it's like 2-3 Czech crowns in my pocket. It's the same ratio, 300, 400 million Czech crowns with the Czech economy. And we are, I don't know how to say it even in English in a very nice way, that our body has a reaction even before the, you know, the shot is done. So this is our policy towards Russia. And I personally, I absolutely do not agree with this. But on the other hand, I see positive signs from what's happening, because at least, and I mentioned it already, those who didn't know that now clearly can see whom we are dealing with, what Russia is able to do, how far it can go. And at the end, I think it's quite positive for, it's not very positive for Ukraine, of course, but for the EU, it can be in long term a positive experience, yeah, because it can prevent future mistakes in the EU policies. I still believe that Europe is stronger than Russia. That Russia has stronger voice, maybe. Yeah, it's able to shout and beat now stronger, but it doesn't have the solid under its legs. It doesn't have the platform from which to grow. It's a banana republic. Just instead of banana, it has got gas, and I believe that maybe under the Slovak commissioner Maroš Šefčovič, Europe in midterm will be able to build up the energy market and the interconnection in such way that we will be the one who will be stopping the Russian gas to flow to the Europe and telling them keep it. Yeah, not Russia will stop it for us. We will stop it from Russia, and that's my dream that can happen. And I hope that thanks to that's my dream. Yeah, I have a dream. You see, I have a dream.
Said by Reagan.
Yeah, I told you I would do the same like Reagan. Yeah, I know it was not said by Reagan, but still, maybe he repeated it. You know. So now the second question: what we can do with European public to restore its trust and it may be interest in EU relations. All of us, we have the opinion polls and the results of the European elections. But what we done with Europeum last year in the Czech Republic, we did a basically focus group, but we called it European, Citizens Task Force. And we invited 40 people from all over the country, from all the social classes, backgrounds, and so on. And we just discussed with them 3 hours. What do you think about the European Union? Do you understand it? Are you interested in it? And the results were amazing. You know, at least me personally, I could finally understand, go out of my box and understand the ordinary people, why they are so not interested in the EU in the Czech Republic. And do you know why? It's because for them it's a technical project. In the same time, like they are not interested in electing our officials in United Nations or in NATO, they are not interested in electing prosecutors or judges. They consider the EU to be a technical, well-functioning, more or less well-functioning organization. And they trust, in this case, or they don't trust, but they consider the Czech politicians whom they elect in Czech elections to be those responsible for guiding the Czech interest and the citizens' interest inside the European Union. So we can do as many campaigns as possible for motivating people to go to vote in the European elections, but we would have to somehow persuade them that the EU is not only the technical project, but it's also a political project, and that will be extremely difficult. But I am, maybe it's not very modern in this time, but it's my nature. I am optimist, and what do I think is that, and we can see it in all the opinion polls, that people, first of all, they, through their own situation of their own family, they tend to also to evaluate other issues. And we can see it if we are researching or evaluating the opinions on the European Union. It was such a big difference in the policy making of the European Union in the year 2009, where there was 65% of Czechs in favor of the European Union, and now it's only 40-something. No, the differences are not so profound, but the economic crisis and this very negative attitude toward everything, toward my personal life, toward my toward the national institutions, towards the municipality I live in, these negative opinions are reflected also in the opinions on the EU and the governance in the EU. I really truly believe, maybe I am completely wrong, but I truly believe that if we get out from this, in Slovak it's called marasmus, but marasm in English, I don't know, from this mess of still being in, if not in crisis, that at least in this stagnation mood, because it's in our heads, it's already 6 years almost, we have this, it's inside our head. If we slowly are able to get out of this mess and this crisis thinking, I also believe that people will be more positive. Of course, I don't want to tell with this that the changes are not needed in the functioning of the European Union. But on the other hand, I just do not believe that it's so bad with the EU nowadays. I just it would be interesting to research on the articles from late 60s and from the beginning of 17th, what the European newspapers were writing about the crisis in the European Union. I think it was the same. For more than 6 months, France was refusing, it was restraining from the decision-making in the European Union. Probably the press in that time were analyzing all the time that the EU is about to, to collapse. So sometimes it's just good to look into the past a bit, and then maybe we wouldn't be so negative. So.
Thank you, Vlado. You have a dream, but you will not have visas. Anyways, you are an optimist, so maybe. Anyways, there was also a question about the finding allies outside the circles of usual suspects for Visegrad countries. So maybe Ms. Majkowska would like to address also this one. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So just making a short comment on actually that and also other issues, because I think the question that you've raised is very important concerning the EU-Russia relations. So I would say very quickly that I believe, why are we talking in this, you said wishes way. Well, I would say that the reason why this is the case is basically that lots of the EU member states are only waking up now to what actually Russia has been standing for years. I don't want to say that we Poles have seen all that for years, but yes, indeed, Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs have been criticized for being Russophobic for I don't know, a decade or so. Well, he was not that long in power, but still. The policy of reset has been in place for as long as I don't know, for until the end of last year. Well, so that's why probably we are right now only redefining our position towards Russia. And still, I would say that it's not going that badly, since certain concrete measures have been taken, such as sticking to the association agreements with Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, excluding Russia from G8, organizing it in Brussels instead of Sochi, pursuing our talks with the US, and all that done in order to conclude with the TTIP agreement, which would actually probably lead to diversification of gas supply. Our Polish attempts are very concrete. We are building the gas terminal in Świnoujście, which will allow us to diversify the supplies of gas probably from Arab countries. Well, this might be a bit more expensive, but we are willing to take to pay the price for actually redefining this policy towards Russia. So I would say that these are the concrete measures, and it's great that EU is actually realizing that, and the energy union is actually right now being discussed. So that's on this question. And coming back to your question concerning Mr. Tusk, yes, indeed. Personally, I'm very proud to hear that he was appointed as a president of the European Council. This proves that we have, in the past few years, built the position of he personally, but also Poland, as a skillful negotiator. And as you have said, should V4 become a V3? Well, +1. I don't think so. I think the strength is actually in acting together. There might be a strong leader, but still under the auspices of the Visegrad group. There is also V4 plus. Project cooperating with Slovenia, with Austria. I believe we should actually pursue this priority of securing further alliances. As for the lack of legitimacy, a lot has been said so far, so I will just add to that a small attempt that was already taken this year, namely trying to make the European Parliament elections a little bit more personal and appointing the candidates, such as Mr. Juncker or Mr. Schulz, already early enough, and presenting them to the citizens as potential future presidents of the European Parliament, was a step already in the right direction. So I think we should continue with that.
Thank you. Our seminar is coming to close, but before we move on to a more informal setting and continue with discussions, I would like to give floor to Mr. Hrenek to maybe answer also these questions and give some closing remarks.
Thanks. I would like to take two questions from Pavel. For me, they are extremely important, and the credibility really is in stake in Eastern Partnership. But I have to underline that the EU cannot use the same instruments or same weapons like Russia. It doesn't have them, and also it's not in the mindset of the EU to annex or to really play a negative role in neighboring countries. But for me, the steps that were taken are really strong. I would prefer to take them faster and even stronger, but the EU is acting and really stopping Russia of going further. So, and for that, I think that there is a long period of tension with Russia that we can expect, because Russia is not going to change quickly. But what the EU has to do is really to stay strongly on values, on principles, and to behave in that way. So there is no other possibility. For legitimacy gap, I worry. Even though still there is quite high support and people, they understand that the EU is bringing positive benefits for them, the mindset in society is negative, and it has influence on the perception of EU. And all players are equally responsible. It's not only EU institutions, but really how EU funds are used in the country, how politicians comment on EU decisions. That's everything. It has effect on perception of the EU. And also media, they play a really important role. If they criticize something that in reality is beneficial for people, they are not playing a constructive role. So for me, there is also this lack of responsibility, and on all levels. So EU institutions, they can really make less decisions in so-called small areas and to concentrate on big issues, bringing concrete benefits for people, but also institutions or national players should be responsible for their decisions on their level, and clearly to explain that this is not the EU who is forcing us to do these decisions, but it's their responsibility. And for that, I think we should have more information for people on possibilities that EU offers, because EU is bringing us many benefits, but also many possibilities how to be involved in decision-making, but also how to use it for benefits of students, teachers, scientists, towns, regions. Everybody can benefit, but they have to know how and what they could expect from the EU, not to have exaggerated expectations. So for me, that is quite crucial, and at least in Slovakia, we are not doing enough. So only to conclude, I really appreciated the whole debate, not only about V4 cooperation and V4 policies, but general on the situation in the EU, because only in frank discussion we can really to concentrate on improvements, how to improve functioning the EU, and also how to benefit. Maybe through V4 cooperation, our countries could benefit more, but the general benefit of the EU is the most important. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, and I would like to thank again to our partners, the representation of the European Commission in Slovakia and the Heinrich Böll Stiftung in Prague. Also, I would like to invite you to a small buffet, which is an opportunity to continue our discussions in a more informal mode. And I'm looking forward to meet you again at similar meetings or events in the future. Thank you very much.